Good morning and welcome to Pierce Talks. I'm Sally Porter Smith, the Pierce College Foundation Board President, and I am happy to welcome you to Fort Steilacoom campus. This event is made possible by the Pierce College Alumni Office, the Foundation, and the distinguished alums who you will get to meet in just a moment. I'm really excited about this talk. Last year, we did our first one, and I have to tell you, I left the building with my feet several feet off the ground. I am very pleased to have Hallie Walker with me today. She is a student at Fort Steilacoom campus, and she has some good information for us. Hallie.
Hello, everyone. I'm a proud student at Pierce College, Fort Steilacoom, and a future alum. I keep myself busy by studying education, and I'm a part of the student government team as Clubs and Organizations Senator. It is my pleasure to be here with you, Sally, and all of you today. Before we get started with Pierce Talks, I'd like to share some safety information with you. This is the performance lounge that we are currently in. Please notice the exits around you and make note of the exits nearest to you. The nearest restrooms are located right outside of this room, slightly down the hall to your left.
Thank you, Hallie. It's now my pleasure to introduce our Board of Trustees Chair, Angie Condon, our Chancellor and Pierce College District CEO, Michelle Johnson, our interim president of Pierce College Fort Steilacoom, Deidre Swallow. Where are you, Deidre? There she is. And our Pierce College Puyallup president, Dr. Darrell Kane. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I now get to introduce the moderator for our program. She did it last year, and she was fabulous. So if you will help me welcome Professor Melanie Rasmussen to the stage. Melanie is a math professor at Pierce College, and upon conclusion of each of the individual alums' talk, she will welcome them all up to the stage as a panel, and with Melanie leading the conversation. As I said, Melanie is a fabulous, fabulous moderator, and she has brought to this college and brings to this role her passion for serving underserved student population, her tenure and dedication to this college, and her unique perspective as a faculty member, and who plays a significant role in the success of Pierce College students. Please welcome Melanie Rasmussen.
Thank you, Sally and Haley. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm looking forward to getting Pierce Talks started. Our first Pierce Talks presenter was honored as the very first distinguished alumni in 1981. He's an entrepreneur with a strong sense of love for his community, started his own branding and advertising and strategic communications company called J. Ray. In fact, if you happen to ask about J. Ray, in the South Sound communities, you're likely to hear about how J. Ray's talented employees have spent decades working for Pierce County organizations. He has since retired, but J. Ray is still going strong and proud to call Tacoma home. Please join me in welcoming Jerry McLaughlin.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Jerry McLaughlin. I'm a retired Executive Vice President and owner of J. Ray Advertising and Public Relations. Last month, I lost my dad, and last week, I lost my mom, and this week, I lost my favorite aunt. So lately, as you can imagine, I've been doing a lot of reflecting. And as I reflect on my life, I've been blessed that many of my dreams have come true. And if you ask what's the secret to my success, it's one word: relationships. One of my dreams was to get a college education, and that was made possible 50 years ago by Pierce College, or Fort Steilacoom Community College, as it was called then. What made it possible for a D- high school student like me to attend college? Again, that same word: relationships. My first Pierce College relationship was built with Pierce basketball coach Kenneman. He convinced me to quit my job as assistant manager for McDonald's. There were only 3 in the state at that time, to become a full-time college student, and then, of course, play on the basketball team. At that time, at McDonald's, the price of fries were 12 cents, and the price of a burger was 25 cents, and as you know, that's not possible at this time. Then there's a relationship I built with mid-management instructor Ed Hagenow. Now, he helped build my confidence by teaching me how to do a 5-year plan, which I completed in 4 years. He also encouraged me to become president of the DECA Club, Distributive Education Clubs of America, which there was a club at the college. I also attended the national convention in New York City. The most important relationship, though, I formed at Pierce College was with part-time advertising class instructor and marketing director of the local bank, but his name was Glenn Graves. Now, Glenn took me under his wing. He used to send me his old Advertising Age magazines, and later he formed his own advertising agency. He used to let me hang out after work with a group of guys, and we used to drink beer and play darts, and then I'd listen to them talk about the business. One day, while I was managing editor of the Tacoma Facts newspaper, Glenn told me about a minority scholarship that was available at the University of Puget Sound. So I applied, and to my surprise, I was accepted. And not only that, but to my surprise, I realized that I was in over my head. I took 4 classes. The first day, each of those professors gave us 100 pages to read by the following day. But it didn't take long before I asked for help, and then I got help from the next person I had a relationship with, Dr. Prenz. And Dr. Prenz was head of the business department at UPS, and he was also a tenured professor. And so he tutored me after class, and he challenged me every day. So then, working part-time as an intern and as sales manager for the University of Puget Sound Trail newspaper, it took me an extra semester, but eventually I did earn a Bachelor of Arts degree in business management with an emphasis in marketing. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Remember I told you about Glenn Graves. He was an advertising professor who taught the advertising class at Pierce College. After I graduated from UPS, he hired me to work in his advertising agency. Then years later, after Glenn left the agency, Kurt Jacobson, Raymond Ray, and Judy Phillips and I took over the company. We renamed it Jacobson, Ray, McLaughlin, and Phillips, a big name in advertising. I was proud to have my name on a business and then to get the opportunity to apply the business knowledge that I learned in college. And then right away, we were Small Business of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. Then, soon afterwards, we were the largest advertising agency in the South Sound. But the name was too long, so we shortened it to J-Ray. I spent 37 wonderful years there as an owner, building business and community relationships. Under the leadership of Kathleen Deakins, J-Ray is today stronger than ever. Along the way, I was able to give back to this fabulous community that helped me achieve so much. As a volunteer, I helped raise awareness for sickle cell anemia. I helped elect many local and state officials, Stan, and participated in organizations such as Junior Achievement, American Leadership Forum, and Rotary. I served on the boards of directors of many local nonprofits, including the Tacoma Urban League, UPS Business Advisory Board, Broadway Center for the Performing Arts, Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, Friends of KTPS Public Television, UPS National Alumni Board, Pierce College Business Advisory Board, Northwest Trek, and Palmer Scholars. Now, 6 years into retirement, for 3 months of the year, I volunteer and help raise funds for Palmer Scholars. Palmer is a local minority scholarship program. I also like to travel, so I spent a month in Paris. 2 weeks every November, I relax in Hawaii. I enjoy annual trips to Cannon Beach, and I've kicked back and drink wine at many local jazz festivals. So in closing, one of my proudest moments happened 38 years ago when I was named Pierce College's first distinguished alumni. Now I have that award with me today, and as someone said, I had to dust it off a little bit. But it says, for Silicon Community College. So us old farts still remember when classes were held in the former Lakewood Montgomery Ward department store building, because there were no campus buildings at that time. Pierce College was just an idea. But it all started 50 years ago with relationships formed at Pierce College. So you students, get to work, kickstart your career, and start building those relationships. Thank you, Pierce College.
Wow, Jerry, thank you so much for all of your comments. I would just like to say, when Jerry spoke of local, he's from a graduate of Clover Park High School. Do I have any other Warriors in the room? I got one, we got two? All right, well, that's part of the relationships that we build. You know, we get to know the people around us, we remember where we came from, and we give back when we can. And that's how we build it. And so for all of those of you in the room, think about the relationships you can build while you're here at Pierce College. And for those of you who live here at Pierce College, let's think about the relationships we can build with our students. So thank you again, Jerry. Can we get another round of applause? Okay. Our next presenter has been part of creating history with the Tacoma Fire Department. It would be a long list to name all of her accomplishments, so I'll share just a few. In November of 2000, People magazine, yes, the very popular People magazine, the real one, published an article about her and the women of Tacoma's Fire Station 10. Prior to achieving her goal of becoming a firefighter, she was a power lifter, literally and figuratively putting the power in girl power. The mother of 4 young men, which is even more astonishing than a lot of other things. I have 4, but at least I have 2 girls. She has been honored as Pierce College Distinguished Alumni in 1999. And I would like you all to please welcome retired Tacoma firefighter Karen Leming to the stage.
I don't know how they dig up this stuff, really. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished alumni, faculty, friends, family. My mother's here. She worked at Pierce for 22 years, so she had to come. Yeah. So I feel very honored to be here and talk to you about how Pierce College impacted my life, and also how you can thrive in an evolving world. First of all, let me ask you this. How many people know what they want to do as a career? Raise your hand. Wow. How many don't know? Okay, well, maybe we'll have some future firefighters here. Yeah, hey. I was that graduate from high school that did not know what I wanted to do for a living. After high school, I got a job to earn money, and in the fall, I went to Clover Park Vocational Technical Institute in data entry operator. I found employment in that field, but eventually I wasn't really happy doing what I was doing. In the fall of 1978, I began at Fort Stilla Community College, which of course is now Pierce College. And I didn't know what I wanted to major in, but I had worked at the Mail Bag in the Villa Plaza. Anybody remember that? It was a men's clothing store. So I thought, maybe I'll just major in fashion merchandising. Yeah. While attending school at Pierce, and since I had been an athlete, I started to take advantage of the workout facility on a consistent basis. I would lift weights, swim, and run around the lake. That's when they had a swimming pool. I joined the master swim team that they had at the time, and then Pierce College eventually had a college swim team, and we used to swim against UPS, PLU, all the major colleges at the time. And so anyway, I was a swimmer for Pierce. My focus on fitness became very important to me, and it began to change my life. I began to challenge myself with my workouts, getting stronger and more confident as a result. The other benefits of training was the discipline and the structure, and that led to self-growth, which I did need. I was becoming a strong woman physically and mentally, and I liked it. This would prove to be how I defined who I was. Even today, I continue to train in all aspects of fitness. I was not really happy with the fashion merchandising program, as it really wasn't my passion. I decided to take a career assessment test. Do they still offer that, career assessment testing? Okay. And my strengths were physical education, parks and recreation, and secretary. I'm sure I got those skills from my mother. Yeah, go figure. In 1979, I changed my major to Parks and Recreation. It was the best decision that I could have made for myself. I really began to thrive during this time at Pierce College. It was also during this time that somebody I knew planted a very important seed, a seed that I would hold on to for a long time before pursuing it as a possibility. My friend's boyfriend at the time had suggested to me that I should take the fire department test. He was in the process of testing at the time and thought I would be a good candidate. Well, I had never considered firefighting. I didn't even know that women could do it. And quite honestly, I had no idea how to even get started. You see, this was the 1970s, and women were just starting to fight for the right to become professional firefighters. I had never even seen a female firefighter and had no clue about any of the challenges that they were facing for the opportunity to become one of America's bravest. During my time at Pierce, I also met my husband Paul in a public speaking class. And I'm really not that good at public speaking, but anyway, I met him at a public speaking class, and we were married in 1981, the same year I graduated from Pierce College. As you can see, a lot of good things happened at Pierce in my 3 years of attending there. During that time, I will also say, I realized some of my potential, gaining confidence, purposefulness, leadership, commitment, and the power of setting goals. There were many people that contributed to my overall growth that were part of my Pierce experience. After I was married, I worked part-time in data entry and part-time in parks and recreation. And as life would go, I had a son in '82, another son in '84, another son in '85. You can see my life was very busy at the time, but I was still not fulfilled with the jobs that I was earning a living at. I had not forgotten that seed that was planted in 1979. And for some reason, I felt the need to pursue firefighting. Don't ask me why, but I needed to see if I was cut out for it and what firefighters really do other than what I see on TV and in the news. As luck would have it, 1986, I learned that Pierce County Fire District 7, which is Spanaway Fire, which is now Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, was looking for volunteer firefighters, and I thought this was my chance. I submitted my application, took and passed the physical, and then passed the oral boards. In the spring of 1987, I attended the countywide recruit academy that they put on that introduced you all the basic aspects of firefighting. The weekend of training verified to me that this is what I wanted to do as a career. Little did I know how difficult this was going to be, not only as a career choice, but on my family. The country was still in the early stages of women entering the fire service, and I quickly found out that some people had mixed opinions about it. The comments that I heard from people, male and female alike, when it would come up in conversation about me pursuing firefighting, sometimes were very negative. As I was in the beginning to understand, in order to succeed and thrive in a male-dominated field, I had to work hard, earn respect, and earn trust. You realize that you do stand out and could be under more scrutiny. I just wanted to fit in. My time at Spanaway Fire from 1987 until 1991 would lay the foundation for who I would become as a professional firefighter. There were a lot of great mentors and people in Fire District 7 at the time who I still hold in high regard to this day that contributed to my success as a volunteer firefighter. In February of 1991, I started my career as a professional firefighter with Tacoma Fire Department. I was almost 32 years old and had 4 sons now, all under the age of 10. And I was also the breadwinner. No pressure here, right? When you begin your career as a firefighter, you go through an academy, and ours was 13 weeks long, 5 days a week, all day long, and homework at night. My husband and I knew this would be very challenging, so my husband decided he would quit his job to support the family and the day-to-day operations at home while I was at the academy for 13 weeks. After graduating from the academy, you're sent out into the field and you're constantly tested in all areas of firefighting and EMS. You do not have this job until you successfully pass 1 year of probation. In 1992, I did just that. I wish I had more time to talk to you about what an amazing career I had with Tacoma Fire Department, but just know it was amazing. I could not imagine that when the seed was planted in 1979 for me to look into becoming a firefighter, if I had ignored or not challenged myself to look into it, I would have missed out on the greatest career that I could have ever been blessed to have had. The opportunities are there for you if you are willing to pursue them. Sometimes, even if it is intimidating, you have to follow your heart and see where it leads. I've learned that you need to love what you do and have passion in what you do. Otherwise, you may never feel fulfilled or that you have reached your potential. Don't settle for less if you don't have to, and take a chance, even if it will challenge you. What's your passion? How will you thrive in an evolving world? How can Pierce College help you? Will your possibilities be realized? Thank you.
Okay, wow. I have to say, we have one other thing in common that I didn't discover earlier. My first job was a data entry operator as well. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how sometimes we get channeled into things. And one thing I love about Pierce is that all of the possibilities of what you want to do can be realized here. I said the line, I know I just did, but it's really true. It's really true. And also, I want to recap just one thing that she had mentioned. She took a test, physical, board, and trained to work for free because she found her passion. And I want to encourage all the young people in here that are still looking for that thing to remember that time and that struggle and that passion that you're aiming for, and give it everything that you have. And I'd like to also give her one more round of applause, please. Okay, our third and final Pierce Talks presenter could best be described as a man of many talents and many travels, excelling in all of his pursuits, and I mean all of them. In fact, just a few days ago, he became the Director of Medical Affairs with Swenson Healthcare in Tacoma. An article announcing him as the newest member of the Swenson Healthcare leadership team was described as practicing family medicine physician who has earned a reputation as a physician, executive, and healthcare leader on a local, state, and national level. He's retired Army, U.S. Army Brigadier General, and a proud Pierce College alumni. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Stan Flemming. I think so. I'm just going to take it. Thank you.
This is intimidating being up here. Holy cow. And good morning to all of you. My name is Stan Flemming, and I have to begin with saying I am a very proud graduate of Pierce College. So I love that. I also want to say a couple of other things before I get started. Number one, thank you so much for having me and certainly my fellow alumni here this morning. It is always a privilege and special to come back here and participate in whatever we're allowed to do. It's also quite humbling when you're listening to the two previous speakers and their accomplishments, and you go, holy cow, I got to follow these guys. But we are privileged, and thank you. You're going to hear a couple of things in my last presentation, and I have to tell you, in full disclosure, we didn't conspire and we didn't coordinate our presentations, but the message and the theme is very consistent through all three of those. About servant leadership, about dreaming dreams, about what you can accomplish when you put your heart and your soul into that. And it all began right here. So I want to talk about how education can shape our future, and in this world in this evolving world that we live in, how it lays out before us, but it all begins in one spot. No one ever starts out in life without an aspiration of wanting to be something. At least I've never met that person. I think most people start out back when we're 2 or 3 years old and say, hey, when I grow up, I want to do this or I want to do that. Maybe I was one of those one exceptions because I had no clue in the world what I wanted to do when I was growing up, and I still don't. So, do we ever dare to dream dreams? And I tell folks, when you're talking about where you want to be in life, where you want to go, you've got to start with daring just to dream dreams. Because if you don't have a dream and you don't get a vision, you can't set a course, you'll never get to where you want to go or hope to go as you grow up. So I threw up a couple of vocations here, and I'll just kind of roll through them. Some of them may look familiar, just so bear with me on there. But, everyone in this room has aspired to be something. And so, the list goes on and on and on that I threw up there. I was no different on that. And I just wiped out my slides. No, we don't. Okay. So every dream, begins with the belief. And what I mean by that is, number one, we got to believe in who we are as an individual. And what I mean by that is, do we have what it takes to meet the challenges of life? It's interesting when we're children, when we're pediatrics, we often think about life as being perfect. Everything's perfect because all our needs are met. We don't have to think about where we're going to sleep, where we're going to eat, what we're going to do. It's all laid out for us. And we grow up believing that's the way it is until we start getting into the toughness of life. There isn't a person I've ever met that didn't face a challenge in life. And it's how we prepare ourselves to meet those challenges that allows us to move forward and be successful. Do we know what our own foundations are? Every person builds their own foundation, and it's got to be rock solid if you're going to be rock solid as you go into the future. and what are we going to build that on? And then knowing that we're not the center of the universe, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, because if you knew me back when I was starting out at Pierce College, the center of the universe began right here. Any of us have kids? They'll tell you the same thing. So our journey begins with believing in who we are. One of the exercises I give to my patients oftentimes who come in and say, I don't think I'm worthy, I lack self-worth or whatever, is you can't ever ask someone to believe in you until you believe in yourself. And so I give them the exercise of every morning when you get up, look in the mirror and say, hey, you're a good person, you're worthy, and I believe in you. Because if you can't convince the person in the mirror, you're not going to convince anybody else. It's also believing what's possible. Here at Pierce College, we talk about possibilities realized. It's true. It's not just a bunch of words thrown together that sounds good, but it's true. Oftentimes we fall short of believing in what we can do, so we never really realize our own potentials on there. And so oftentimes we fixate on what we can't do versus what we can do. When I came to Pierce College, or Fort Steilacoom College, or I think that's what it was back then, I had no idea. I didn't believe in anything in myself. And it really was, and why I am so passionate about this institution is because at that time we had a faculty there that had this fire that literally burned in their gut to ensure that students that came here were successful. We came from all different walks of life, but those professors at the time had it in their demeanor, or whatever you want to call it, that students, if they came here to learn, they would learn. To this day, I am passionate about the professors I had here, because I was one of those students who's like, okay, I'm here, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm going to become. But I had one professor, math, yeah, who said, you can learn calculus. And I went, yeah, right. He used to have me come here at 6 in the morning, every morning, one-on-one. He would tutor me, and he would drill me and drill me and drill me, because he said, you can do it if you apply yourself. Now, I don't know how many people here are taking organic chemistry. That wasn't one of my fortes either, but we had a professor here who did very similar. Because the professors believed that, number one, no student should ever fail at an education because they can't afford it. And no student should ever fail because they didn't try. And those professors really laid the foundation from how I grew and why this is my foundation right here. And they taught us what we could do. They saw in us more than we saw in ourselves, versus while we spent our energy talking about what we couldn't do. And I blew this again. Okay, it's also believing in where we want to go on this great journey that we call life. Number one is what is this thing doing to me? Number one is believing in ourselves and who we are, what we are, our families, because depending on how you define family, it's those people and individuals around you that give you the will, the desire to want to always be better than who you are. And lastly, it's about our communities. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool fan of our communities. I live and breathe for our communities. For me, my community is Pierce County, Washington. I'll live and die for all that because I believe in it. So where did Pierce College take me? I was a slow learner. I had the opportunity to start here. And why I throw Stanford up there is because it's a little side story, how I ended up here at Pierce College. In our family, my father, who had been a farmer, ended up in the World War II, was a P-38 mechanic, later on ended up in med school, long story short. But he used to think being a mechanic and a physician were one and the same. But he still had his roots as a farmer. And when we turned 18, he had 4 sons. When we turned 18, he would tell us his job of raising us was over, and he would march us to the front door, and we were on our own. My oldest brother was violently ejected from our home. I still remember. This is a true story. I remember my dad coming home one morning. My brother was still in bed. He grabbed him by his hair, dragged him to the bathroom, cleaned out his shaving kit, dragged him down the steps, put him in a car, drove him down to the bus station, tossed him out, tossed $1 at him and said, "That's your inheritance. get a job, join the Army, or go to college. But he said, you're 18, and my job of raising you is over. Similar to my second oldest brother, I was number 3, and I saw the message, so I didn't want my hair pulled out. So the day I turned 18, I happened to get a letter from Stanford. And it said, you'd been accepted, and you got to send your money. And so I went to my dad, and I said, I thought he'd be kinder and gentler. I said, Dad, I got accepted to Stanford. I need some money. This is awesome. And he read it, and then he said, gosh, I am really proud of you. This is a big accomplishment. Then he put his arm around me, and he walked me to the front door. He didn't grab my hair. And he stood me on the front porch of our home, and he said, look out there. There's a whole world ahead of you. And he says, it's going to be a great adventure. But he says, the only way you're going to succeed is by having an education. And he said, good luck. Patted me on the back and closed the door. So I had nowhere to go. So I called up my brother. I said, hey, I'm on my own. I don't know where to go. He said, you can come hang out here for a few days. So I did, and I learned what it's like to be semi on the street. I learned what it's like to stand in a welfare line and an employment line and have people back then call you all kind of wonderful names to get that little stamp in your book so you could have some money to live on. So one day while I was feeling bad, my brother said, you really ought to think about your education. I said, well, that left when my dad wouldn't give me the money. He said, well, let me take you down to Fort Steilacoom. He drove me down here. He walked me into the admissions office, and he said, my brother wants an education. He wants to sign up for school, and he signed me up and got me started here. Scared the living daylights out of me, first of all. But that's where the journey really began for me. That's why I'm so passionate about this institution. The faculty, and when you think about it, Jerry talked about Pierce College or Fort Steilacoom back then began in the Montgomery Ward's building. I remember that, and I kept thinking, how can you remotely get an education in Montgomery Ward's store? So they upgraded. We moved to these wooden buildings that we had, the whole row of the wooden buildings, and I kept thinking, that's not much of an improvement. But I learned out of that experience that it's not the brick and mortar that makes an education. It really is about the people that live and work within those structures, within those confines. And we had and have, in my opinion, and I've been in education on and off for a long time, the brightest and the best professors, educators, and administrators that any money could buy anywhere. But Pierce College gave me a pathway to an education. And if you see all those institutions up on the screen there, one led to the other, led to the other. Now someone will say, that's pretty impressive. And others may say, you are one hell of a slow learner. What did I learn from my time at Pierce College? Number one, that the world is bigger than me. The world's bigger than all of us. And it takes all of us to be a part of that and to make this work. Life is a puzzle, and we're just pieces of it. I also learned that you can't do it on your own, and it always takes a someone or someones to help us achieve what we need to do in life. I often chuckle when I listen to people who say, I'm a self-made man, I'm a self-made woman. I don't believe in any of that for a minute. No one in life gets ahead. No one in life has success without someone along that pathway who saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves. I can tell you, I've had more people in my pathway help me see things in myself that I never saw, that allowed me to go and do the things that I got to do in life. If I died tomorrow, I would have been one of the luckiest guys that ever lived because of those people that were in my pathway. Life is really it's a series of adventures and not one adventure. Don't get yourself wrapped up into one experience in life. Experience the whole thing while you can. It was awesome. I also learned here that it's not about how fast you get through it, but how much you have when you get to the end, but how much you give back along the way. You've heard my two previous alumnus share about their experiences of giving back to the community or giving back someplace. My father used to say, you have two choices in life. You can be an asset to your community or you can be a liability. I encourage everyone, strive to be that asset to your community. Give something back. The other thing is, it's not about how many titles you gather in life. You know, when I was starting out, I kept thinking, God, it'd be really cool to have a title, you know, because that makes you important, right? You know, here's a little secret about titles. Titles is nothing more than an abbreviation of your job description. It's not what you gather in your title, but what you do with that title to help others and help those people rise up and become successful in their own lives. There's a lot to learn from our successes, but there's also a lot to learn from our failures. You know, I sat down and I tried to calculate or figure out how many successes I've had in life and how many failures I had, and then I was really depressed because I realized that I'd had more failures in life than I'd had successes. But through those failures, you also learn what you don't do, and you're becoming a servant leader. And lastly, you know, life is a team sport. And what I mean by that is it takes all of us, no matter what vocation we have in life, what walk we come from in life, it really does take all of us to get to the end of the end game. No one is better than someone else. You know, I was talking just before this presentation about how I ended up in med school, and I say, hey, you know, I ended up there because I lost a bet. Kind of a weird way to get to med school. But before that happened, I was actually in med school the first time. A lot of my friends don't know that. And it's another story for another time. But what they taught us in that med school was that as physicians, we're better than the rest of the population, and we should keep ourselves here and the rest of the world here. I wasn't going into healthcare to become better than someone. I was going into healthcare to help someone. And so I finally figured out how to get out of it for my fellow soldiers that are over here. My ticket out was to enlist in the Army as a private. Okay, I thought that was pretty cool till I got to my basic training as a private. And I was scrubbing toilets and scrubbing pots and pans. And one afternoon, I'm sitting on the back of the mess hall scrubbing the pots and pans going, you are one dummy. You know, private in the Army, scrubbing pots and pans, cleaning toilets versus being in med school and feeling like a god. But it taught me that you can't be an effective leader until you learn to serve. Okay? You can't. I don't care how great anyone thinks they are. Until you've learned to be a servant, you can't be an effective leader. So in the end, I just want to say, do dare to dream dreams, you know, because the possibilities are really unlimited. The only thing that will keep you from achieving your dream and your goal is yourself. So with that, again, thank you so much. I have to say you one more thing before I jump off the stage. In preparing for this thing, I thought, God, I'm feeling a little intimidated, and I got to prepare myself to be talking to this great audience. And I thought, I'm going to go on to YouTube University. Anybody know where that is? I do that on Saturday mornings when I'm trying to figure something out. And I looked at Jeff Bezos, and I thought, I should get up and present like him. You know, and then I realized, you know, that could be a disaster because number one, I'm not good looking, number two, I'm not rich, and thirdly, I'm not bald yet. So I had to abandon that. So you got what you got this morning. But again, thank you all so much.
Thank you for that technical pause. All right, so at this time, I just want to first, can we just do one more round of applause? One more. And I just have to say, I did not know another thing. Both Stan and I had parents who laughed at us when we wanted to go to Stanford. His parents kicked them out the door. My parents sold the house and put me on a plane. So we have another similar story. At this time, we're going to have all of our presenters back on the stage for an interactive question and answer panel for the portion. We're doing this because it's very important for students and even faculty and staff to have access to our alumni so that you can see people that have come from here and built themselves up and then gone out and thrived in the community. And so I hope that you'll take the opportunity to ask some questions. We're going to have mics around. We're going to have a mic around here. And it's just been wonderful to have all of you back on campus. I just want to say that again in case I forgot. And so I'd like you to actually just come on up on the stage now. Is that good? Just now? Come on up. I'll get out of your way. Not at all.
Just sit in.
Yeah, just grab a chair. Alrighty. Okay. No, it's okay. I promise. I promise. I promise. I promise. Okay. I'll try to keep track of all these things. I'm going to join you guys over here. I have notes, so I'm advantaged here and privileged. Okay, so I'll ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to start with a question. And if you don't have a question, I'm going to start talking about mathematics. All right, we have our first question.
Good morning. My name is Robert Britton, and my first question is for Dr. Jerry McLaughlin. In our private conversation, you mentioned that you were a member of the BSU at Puyallup, and I wanted to ask you, when you join clubs, especially the Black Student Union, what advice could you give students in this institution, especially students of color, to be a part of a community that grows and are part of the activism arm of an institution?
Okay, so I went to University of Puget Sound, and we had a very small community there of Black students. And it was during a turbulent time, during the mid-late 60s. And what we did together was to try to bring awareness to the overall campus of the African American experience. And so we had resources, and we had an annual event. We had, we called it a Black Homecoming. And we had speakers like Angela Davis. We had Reverend Jesse Jackson. We had other kind of activities. And it's kind of the thing I learned about education and what you can do with it. That you don't have to have a degree in social science to have an impact on social causes, because I was a business student. So what I did is I found ways to put those skills to work in the community. And in the Black Student Union, I became a publicist guy. And so I did posters, I did news releases, I did public service announcements. I did a whole lot of other those things, but it allowed me to explore other areas that I might be interested in and still support the cause that I was interested in. I hope that answered your question.
And if I could follow up with that question, if each of you could just take a moment to tell us maybe something here at Pierce College that you remembered because of the connections that you made here. It might have been a long time ago. We just start and maybe at the end and come on down this way.
Oh, it's already on. Something that I remembered. I'll tell you, back then, it was a blur. It really, truly was a blur. But the thing that, as I mentioned during my presentation, the thing that just through the years has never faded was the commitment that the professors had to the students. It has never faded because they left such an indelible mark on my life. The enthusiasm, the commitment they had to this institution and to the students. I'll tell you, as the years passed, one of the wonderful privileges I had was serving as a president for a university. And you know, the things that used to stick in my head was, I want my professors to be just like they were at Pierce College. I want to be just like Michelle Johnson too, you know, as an administrator. You know, I mean, those, because it was so vivid about that. And I'll tell you, I've been through a boatload of institutions over the years. They've even had the privilege of serving as a board chair for one of our state institutions. I have never, ever seen that again in any other institution. So that's the one thing that I remember.
I mean, I would ditto what you just said. The encouragement, the mentorship, and just the strength and wanting you to succeed, basically here. And I mean, it's across the board with the faculty and other folks that were part of Pierce College at the time. I've truly figured out my direction. I didn't really have a direction prior to Pierce, I don't think, and so it helped me focus and sort of started my journey.
Thank you, Karen.
Now, I'm the most unlikely person sitting up here to be actually sitting up here. As I mentioned, I was a D- high school student. I got a job at McDonald's, and it was, like I said, the third one in the state. I was probably the third black person that ever worked for McDonald's. I became an assistant manager. I was on my way to owning my own McDonald's. That's what I was going to do. So I took a couple of classes at Pierce. I was afraid to take classes because I was such a bad student. But I got better grades in college than I had in high school because I was more inspired and I learned how to work hard. So the things I remembered were excitement about being able to go to college and then all the help that I got, because without the help that I got from people like Glenn Graves and Ed Hagenow, I never would have been able to make it.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say for the students, if you don't have a mentor here at Pierce College, go attack one, grab one, make them your own. There's people that are willing to help you out here, and if you can't find someone in your area and you need to help cajole them into that, just let me know. Okay. Do I have another question? Here.
Good afternoon. My name is Eli Ellis, and just first, as a member of the student leadership team here at Fort Steilacoom, I want to thank you guys for coming today. You all spoke about servant leadership and community. As alumni, what do you think is like the one thing, if you want to leave a legacy behind here at Pierce College, what would you recommend to the students here and even the faculty, that what can we do to, in your eyes as alumni, to leave a legacy here?
I think one of the things you can do as a student are a couple of things. Number one, be engaged in the institution, be engaged with your fellow students, be engaged with your faculty and the administration. Number one. Institutions don't get better without knowing how to get better, and students are probably the best source of information, of being able to say, hey, here's what we're doing and here's what we need to improve on. You know, when I was a student here, I was just feeling lucky to be here. And I was very intimidated about going to, I'd never have gone to the administration, I got an idea. We, get over that part of it, because you learn later that the administration's success is built on your success. Same for faculty. They want to know, how can we do better than what we're currently doing? The second part of that is being involved in your community. Pierce College is really one of those foundations of our community. It's also one of the gems of our community. But the community really doesn't know what goes on behind the walls here. That message can only be carried by the students, and getting out in the community and saying, hey, I'm a Pierce College student, I'm a Pierce College grad. Let the community know who you are, why you're here, and what you stand for. Those are two things that I think right off the top of my head you could do as a student.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Hello, my name is Marsha, and today we in our class are talking about public speaking. So I want to say thank you. You're helping us to become better speakers. And second of all, forgive me for you not knowing your name. The lady who's firefighter.
Karen?
I'm all about girl power. I'm all about getting us women out there. Where did you get your motivation to keep that in mind, especially going through the test and the physical part of what you do?
Good question. So I didn't look at it as girl power. I just want to become a firefighter, and I happen to be a woman. And so there are challenges with that, but there's just challenges becoming a firefighter. You have to earn respect whether you're male or female. You have to earn trust whether you're male and female. You have to do the work. And so it's not necessarily a male-female thing, because there's a lot that goes with it. Obviously, I knew that there was different challenges, and it depends where you are in the country, too. West Coast might have less challenges than East Coast, for instance. And, you know, our world is in transition still, with women in the armed forces, women in the military, women in, you know, whatever non-traditional job there is. And I understand that people are in transition. And so I kind of go with that, and that's just me, right? So I go with that, but I also understand what I need to do to succeed given those challenges. So with that comes girl power, I guess, right? And so it's kind of a thing now. I'm not one out there like, oh, girl power. I'm not like that. I'm just doing the work, and I happen to be a girl, and that's just me.
Thank you so much for that comment. And that's one of the most important things, is being willing to do the work. For students, that's doing the work in the classroom, doing the work in the classroom that involves not just your gain, but also the gain of the people around you. And it's the instructors and the administrators and the faculty and staff all doing our work, our piece, to make this a wonderful place to be. And so that we could just really thrive here and remember where you came from and come back and give back like these wonderful folks here have done with us today. It's important for you to see the futures that they've built for themselves and know where their beginnings came from. With this, all things are possible. So I think that's our 1-minute cue. And I'm going to have Sally come on stage to hand out some gifts for Jerry, Karen, and Stan, and we appreciate that, yeah. So we'd like to thank everybody in the audience for coming today. Let me make sure I say this right. One of the goals of Pierce Talks program is to create this engaging and dynamic space for the students, alumni, and the friends of the college, so we can come together, share ideas, listen to Melanie's math jokes. So I have a function for everyone. Sorry, I'm breaking from script. I'd like to thank you all for your constant hard work. The constant function. It goes like this. And I would like to thank you for showing us that logistic growth is expected. Now, for those of you who don't know logistic growth, it starts off this steep, uphill, painful climb, hard work, some failures, and then you level off into this success a little bit. And then I'd also like to thank you for your exponential growth as well. We like the exponential growth most. We start out down here, but then we shoot off into the stars because we have our dreams and our aspirations, and it's all just this amazing kind of fun thing that we do. I hope that all of you students out here find something that you love to do, something that you're proud to do, and something that you can come back someday and talk to others about. Oh, and we have a raffle that happened. And we have 3 winners, so if you have a ticket, you might want to get that ticket out. And I need to put my book down because this is exciting. I'm going to ask each of you to read off one of those numbers for me so that I can deal with the running into the crowd. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Our first raffle winner is
516347.
516347. Woohoo! There you go. Thank you. And our next winner.
516356.
I hit her woo? Yes? Yes? All right. Woohoo! And our last and final winner.
Okay, we got to change this up. We got 2 winners here and none over here. I mean, what does
This
that
is
say, right?
probabilistically an issue, actually.
There you go. All right, here we go, team. 5163. I didn't say the last number. 9.
Woohoo! We'll take the middle. We'll take the middle. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. So if I could just get one more round of applause for all of our guests, and thank you all for coming, and thank you all for coming back and giving back to our community.